He never wanted to be king, but now he'll do anything to recover his throne. That's the basic story behind Joe Abercrombie's Half a King, the book I'm reviewing on this episode of SFF180. Hello everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Thomas here, as always. Now, the name Joe Abercrombie is not necessarily one that you would associate with young adult fiction, but then, to be honest, young adult has gotten a heck of a lot more adult in recent years with violent, bleak, ugly dystopias the order of the day. While Half a King, the first volume in the Shattered Seas trilogy, is not actually being marketed as young adult, at least not here in the US, it features a young protagonist and a much shorter, tighter, brisker narrative than most of Abercrombie's earlier novels, with a greater focus on visceral action than complex world building. Now, this results in a reading experience with less depth and fewer thematic layers than, say, the First Law trilogy or massive epics like The Heroes or Best Served Cold. But Abercrombie compensates by giving Half a King a whole lot of punch. Yarvi is the not well-loved second son of King Uthric of Getland. Now, born with a deformed hand and lacking the brutish manly qualities that are deemed necessary for rule, Yarvi has settled upon pursuing an academic and advisory career with the ministry. But when Uthric and his eldest son, Yarvi's brother, are waylaid and murdered in an ambush, Yarvi finds the kingship thrust upon him. Making the best of a situation that even he doesn't think he's suited for, Yarvi wastes no time in leading a military expedition against the warlord who murdered the king. But all too soon, he learns the true meaning of treachery, and he soon finds himself a prisoner of the king's killer. Pretending to be a simple cook's boy just to save his life, Yarvi is sold as a galley slave and finds himself chained to the oars of a vessel run by a drunken and flamboyant merchant captain. His dreams of escape do finally pan out, though, and he and a handful of his fellow slaves and oarsmen begin the long trek back to the royal city, where Yarvi nurses dreams of vengeance against his betrayers. Half a King is no less bloody and brutal than any of Abercrombie's past books, and surprisingly, there's very, very little of the gallows humor that has kind of become Abercrombie's trademark. He spares Yarvi nothing when it comes to the cruelties and the humiliations of war and slavery. And yet, for most of the book's early chapters, the whole thing does kind of feel like Abercrombie light. And readers of his past work will find his settings very familiar, you know the thing. Brutal, harsh, cruel, cold-blooded medieval society where steel rules, while at the same time feeling that there's probably not quite enough meat on the bones. But as the story plows doggedly forward, things do improve markedly. Abercrombie drops some action set pieces that are appropriately riveting. Likewise, while his characters aren't exactly multidimensional, they are at least very vivid, and most importantly, likable. The affinity that Yarvi develops for his fellow escapees feels emotionally genuine, when it could very easily have slid into the trap of Band of Brothers cliches. Yes, there are times when Yarvi feels like he's gotten a little bit too confident and commanding a little too quickly, but for the most part, with plenty of skull-crushing swordplay and a few choice bombshells dropped towards the end in order to hook you into Book 2, Half a King is a story that delivers more than half the goods. And that is all I have time for on this episode of SFF180. Everybody, thank you once again for joining me. Remember, the most important thing, these are reviews. You're not always going to agree with me, but if you enjoyed watching, please leave a like, share the video far and wide with your SFF reading friends, and above all, please subscribe. That is how SFF180 grows as a channel. And until I see all of you next time, happy reading.